Okay, we are live. Let me just share. Okay, guys. Hello, everyone. This is our first meetup in 2022. So, for all our supporters in the community, actually, last year in 2021, we won the most active user group in ASEAN. And thanks to Salam, who's doing all the streaming right now. And thanks to Kaushik and Gohar, who's helping us with organizing these user groups. And of course, thanks to all the speakers who joined us from all around the world last year. And of course, thanks to everyone who's supporting the community by attending or giving us feedback to improve our community. So today we'll be starting with two speakers. One speaker from based in Denmark, Copenhagen, and our second speaker, I think he's based in India. Maybe we'll check with him now when he join us. So Antonio will be talking about today how to adopt micro front-end architectures. Very interesting. He's a tech lead in Nordea in Denmark, and he's an AWS community builder as well. And we have Chirag. So now today actually we are trying something new with Chirag, which is a QA session about how to build your cloud career. And Chirag actually was coming from sales background, from pre-sales background, moved from pre-sales to sales, then become a solutions architect. He has like 20 certificates from different cloud providers, and he's very active in the cloud community. So if you are planning as well to move to cloud career, building cloud career, moving from one field to another, then this is your chance to ask him any question you want. So it will be not a talk like what we usually do. It will be just like a conversation on how we can do this switch to go into the cloud. Before we pass the mic to Antonio, just quick call outs. If you have any question, guys, please just unmute yourself and ask us directly. You can ask the speakers directly, or you can leave the comments in the chat. If you are following on YouTube as well, you can leave the comments there and we will ask our speakers directly. If you are not asking any question, please help to mute yourself. And again, like I mentioned, if we have some people today, because we don't expect a lot of people to attend today as we have the Chinese New Year season now, but if we have and we end up a bit earlier, we will do like what we usually do, a networking sessions, just talking about cloud or anything you guys want to talk about. So I will pass it to you from here, Antonio. Please do share your screen and it's all yours.
All right, let me do that. Just let me know if you can see my screen.
Not yet.
Let me see. What about now?
Yeah, now I can see it very clear.
Cool. So first of all, thanks for inviting me. It's really cool to actually have the opportunity to speak to your user group. It's really nice that with this pandemic, we can actually seek opportunities to do such things. Really cool. Yeah, you just introduced me briefly. I'm Antonio. I work in Nordea as a tech team lead. I'm from Italy, but I've been living now almost 15 years in Denmark. And I'm here mostly because I've been writing technical articles and have quite a lot of experience in AWS, but at the same time, I've been part of this community builder. So, and I really like you to apply when you have the chance, because it's a really cool program. So today I'm going to talk about this journey towards the micro frontends, and in particular, we'll touch upon just a short introduction about what they are, my personal journey while facing them, the lessons learned, and actually what kind of opportunities we can get out if we want to move to the cloud, and in particular to AWS. So we'll start with a quick introduction. So when we talk about micro frontends, it's impossible not to start with the monolith. they've been around for a while, and basically I want you to understand if the monolith actually the bad guys or not, and why everybody is so annoyed about the monolith. Sorry. The idea is that actually the monolith start, as a whole chunk of code based, let's say, in ASP.NET or Swing from the 90s. So essentially, this was causing a lot of issues in terms of a build release, in terms of many conflict, because developers were essentially committing and pushing their changes in the same place. Your IDs were super slow, and actually the release was a pain. So essentially, people came out to decide to apply some sort of divide and conquer approach when you essentially start and split your applications into a front end and a back end. The front end in around the 2005, 2010, it started with the JavaScript ecosystem with many frameworks, Backbone, Ember, AngularJS, and so on. And then people started actually creating applications on top of those framework. The backends kind of stayed relatively the same, like you still have your Java applications based on a connection with SOAP APIs or RESTful APIs. But then this was still causing problem in the sense that you would have still performance issues in the backend side. So this this is what it brought to the sorry, to the birth basically of micro frontend, where you essentially try to have cross-functional teams where you divide context-bound domains that basically are specifically expert in one domain. So you have the auth team, the payments team, and the accounts team. Of course, with a lot of complexity, which I won't touch upon in this talk, but you can imagine all the complexity in the CICD pipeline, the deployment, the orchestration, etc., etc. The same happened at the same time in the front end, because to some extent the front end was actually starting to having the same kind of problem from the microservice point of view. So essentially, again, with the divide and conquer approach, you basically have a front end teams that somehow are specifically working on a specific domain. And now we're moving towards actually merging those two teams, because essentially you want to have a cross-functional end-to-end team working in that sense. Given it's an AWS meeting, I thought that I could take inspiration, actually still literally this definition from Luca Mezzalera, which is a maximum expert in the field by being also an AWS principal solution architect. And essentially, what are micro frontends through this definition? So they're a technical representation of a business side domain, which essentially means that you cut your domain in portion of domain that needs to essentially target a specific business value. Sorry, they are just not a technical representation and you use micro frontend just for the sake of it, but they need to solve a business value and a business need. They allow independent implementations in the sense that you want team to be independent. You want team to deploy on their own pace. And basically, you want to foster this kind of autonomy and ownership for the teams that own those kind of micro frontends. This independent implementation with the same or a different technology, because you could have a micro frontend that an application that can display both Angular or React, for instance, at the same time. It's a little bit controversial because I'm pretty opinionated about this, and I will find out later in the view. But ideally, you have the ability to display different framework at the same time or just the same framework. Also, they should minimize the code share because you want to avoid any coupling between the different parts, and essentially you want to be able to avoid code sharing and maybe compromise on duplication in case that makes your team delivering faster. And as I mentioned, it's owned by a single team. You want to run it, you want to own it, you build it. So essentially, you are responsible and you don't want to be affected by other teams, essentially. But not all is rose and flowers, as we say. So let's see what are the main risks you can get with a micro frontend architecture. So of course, the bundle size. I mean, if you think that you're getting many micro frontends viewed in the same view in your browser, then you need to think about that the browser and your end user eventually will need to load those bundles. And now you're loading all the libraries, all the logic. So this could be a potential risk, of course. Then, as I mentioned earlier, you can have a CI/CD complexity, because we went from a monolith where you had a single probably CI/CD pipeline that was delivering towards one single application in production, to a more complicated setup where essentially you have potentially an individual CI/CD pipeline for each of those micro frontends, and they need to serve one app with multiple views, multiple micro frontends in production. So it adds a lot of headaches for the DevOps, I have to say. Another risk is dependency management. So in this case, we have on the left side one app which contains different micro frontends. As I mentioned, you can have also Angular or React at the same time, and I'm not a big fan of that, because you will basically force your browser to load different frameworks, and that may affect the customer experience for that. When you instead have a single micro frontend, or at least a single choice of the framework, you can also incur into a problem when essentially you could have a micro frontend running a specific version of a React library, and another one having a different one. So you have the potential risk that you're actually loading different version of the same library, which is just just a room for performance problems. And then you are inconsistency. So you have the possibility to actually have a single micro frontend in your own view, which is actually what we have in Nordia. But the challenge there is that how do you make sure that you are consistency across this view? Because potentially you could have a footer that everybody should display, but your app could actually forget or do a wrong implementation of it. So that could bring to UX inconsistency, definitely. So let's look at our journey a little bit. So as I mentioned, I work in Nordea, which is the largest bank in Scandinavia. We actually serve different types of platforms, like for NetBank and mobile app, used actually by millions of users in the Nordic, at least. At the beginning of our journey, I tried to evaluate how do we fit with the micro frontend. And we couldn't do independent deployment because of the monolith. They weren't modeled around a business model, or at least this was driven, let's say, by management choices or how the team were structured. It wasn't merged from the platform itself. So that's why it's a little bit yellow in this case. We were wondering in the beginning whether we should have different framework and different or one, basically, because we're talking about having these choices 3-4 years ago, where the domain about micro frontends wasn't just that established as it's getting right now. So we were very confused about that at that point. The team structure was also tricky because the same team, or at least the payment area, let's say, could be easily spread across organizations. So you would have the backend in one place and you would have the front end in another place. And they have different and probably conflicting priority at the same time. So how do you deal with that? So it wasn't a perfect place, let's say. And then CI/CD maturity. Of course, we had the DevOps working with us, but they were in a different organization. So we wanted to have a little bit more ability to actually exploit their knowledge and be faster to deliver together with us. Also, different problems. You can see here, this is just an example of a package JSON. And as long as you define these dependencies, let's say in a main shell application, then you're basically bundling those at build time, and you're basically high coupling this main shell with, for instance, account payments. So the bundle size will be bigger, as I mentioned earlier. Then the problem is that everybody in 2010 or around the time developed with AngularJS, Backbone, Ember, or maybe vanilla JavaScript. So now there is actually a need because of compliance or because of modern and more performant tools to actually move towards a React ecosystem or Angular, Vue, or whatever. But essentially, that was one of the problems we tried to face as well. Then also lockstep build release, meaning that the smaller the components you have, the faster you can be to release, and the release build is not basically a blocker. But the more and the larger you have instead as a monolith, then the chances that your release step are very slow, it's higher actually. And then the team structure. I touched upon this earlier, but on the other point of view, actually, you can have situations where you have maybe an architect, which I respect with all my heart, but you could have architects that somehow dictates how to do things, or you could have no architect, which actually have the inmates running the asylum, which essentially tells you how do we decide about the architect? Is it us? Is it somebody else? So we were also trying to understand if there could be some architectural choices that could go within the team, within the actual team members. And we were working towards that direction. But it still was a problem. Sorry. So our approach, essentially, our approach was initially to perform an handshake between engineering and business, because when you choose to go for micro frontends, you need a strong business justification to do that. And it's also important that you somehow rely on a business continuity, because it's a luxury actually to have the opportunity to do a big bang migration. But in most of the cases, it really affects poorly the business value for the company. So we try to prioritize and get the organization to prioritize a steady migration or steady architectural changes towards that. And then the teams needed to be redesigned, because we couldn't just be as fast as we wanted. The context also matters. So as I mentioned earlier, it was tricky to see how the micro frontends could be built against a specific model, because maybe you will setting up teams, one team specifically for the sign-in, one for the sign-up, one for payments, which sounded intuitive and sounded also reasonable. But then from the problems you will face by the day, you could actually understand that maybe it will make more sense to extend the context a little bit, and including the signing and the sign up in an auth method or in an auth team, or having maybe payments and accounts in a daily banking, because you want actually to leverage different challenges, like having caching available or having loading at the same time and having people working in the same context, or just keeping them separated, as I show here in the settings, for instance. Then we also look at some approach. We look, for instance, could we do micro frontends with iframes, with web components, with module federation, which came in a little bit later for us, because we started looking at this a couple of years ago, or single spa. We evaluated and we actually did some proof of concept, but eventually we stick with something that I'm going to present in a second. Then the approach was essentially to try this strangle pattern, in a sense that you want to get, you want to still live with the monolith, but at the same time you want to somehow remove functionality out of it. So on the left side, you can see you have a server side component which includes an app shell, which basically include all these accounts, payments, whatever npm packages you have. So the idea was still live with the monolith, so essentially having some packages still live in a monolith, because the migration needs to be steady, but then trying to remove some of them out of it, still living in the server-side component, but still out of it. The next step was actually removing it out of the server-side component, because in that sense, you could actually have those micro frontend 1 and N as a client-side component, in a sense that they don't rely on the same pipeline and the same release process that you used before. And of course, the end is just that instead of having the server-side component holding an app shell, you would essentially have maybe still an app shell, but having different micro frontends on the client side. Then, of course, there are 4 steps, which I'll mention. They're part of the decision framework that also Luca mentioned, and it's part of the lessons learned in the next session. But essentially, you need to decide whether you want your micro frontends to be visible only in one page, or if you want different micro frontends which the user sees at the same time in the same page. With multiple micro frontends in the same page, you have horizontal split, while you have vertical split instead if you have a specific micro frontend in one page. We went for the vertical split because essentially it wouldn't cause too much changes in terms of the pipeline, in terms of how the teams would develop that. It has a lot of pros and cons, of course, but essentially we went towards that path. Then it's important to know how to compose your micro frontend. Of course, this is very specific from my experience, but in general, I could see that, for instance, you could have a team core that provides different common components that at the same time, another customer team, for instance, that provides common components from their side. So in our case, we do some kind of a client-side composition, because the team accounts is able actually to do their code, which is basically this accounts overview, but at the same time, it's able to actually to reuse these common components from the team core and the common components from the customer, so that it can actually composite the the view as we saw on the right side. The routing is also different. Given our monolith was based on a server-side component, then we went for that path because it was actually easier to do that. So again, you have a team core or a team accounts or a customer service that want to somehow, you want them to be composed into a single page. And then you would reuse a server-side composition through your server-side component, NGX or reverse proxy, varnish, to somehow expose on a single path your micro front end, and basically having that displayed for your user. And finally, the step is about the last step is about the communication. So how do you communicate, given that we have chosen to have a single micro front end with another? There are different ways. So essentially, you could pass a JWT token in a domain protected cookies. You can pass non-sensitive data into a local session or in query parameters. And if something maybe it's sensitive and needs to be passed in a query parameter, which you should try to avoid as much as possible, then you should of course hash it or encrypt it in a way that the second micro front end can read it properly. So let's see a quick lessons learned before we jump on how we dealt with the cloud essentially. So the lessons learned was that we didn't kill the monolith, but the monolith is basically our companion because we need business continuity. We can't hold hostage business just for the sake of using micro frontends because they're cool, because they're hype or whatever. You need just a business justification, and you need to understand that they serve a specific purpose. And they are not probably the best cases in most of the cases for companies like startup, for instance. But I'm going to talk about that. So yes, we went through the steady migration rather than big bang because, of course, the business is the highest priority and we can't jeopardize that. Then the micro frontend also encompassed changes in the organization. So as Conway mentioned, any organization that design a system will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization communication structure. And this was true for us because actually by having the organization from our side, and we could actually set up core teams that could actually be responsible for the orchestration of our common components and for governance. And also these end-to-end feature teams, I mentioned this payments team when we were in different organizations, we actually got the chance, the opportunity to actually be merged and actually working on the same backlog. And actually it's just so nice compared to how it was before. So it's really important to have the organization from your side and having the right changes. As I mentioned, the planning is this fourth step I mentioned. So the definition, the composition, the routing, and the communication between micro frontends. I won't go into detail more, but I really suggest to strongly recommend to have this YouTube video where Luca just presents his view about the topic. And then frameworks. I strongly recommend to stick with a single framework because it's not like micro services where you can use a C# REST API or a Java REST API that can expose different APIs. The burden it's now on the client, but the burden is essentially now on the user. So you need to be putting the user and the customer as a highest priority in that sense. We invested into web component. There are different ways with lead component, Angular element, or stencil, and other stuff. But essentially, web components are a really cool thing to actually leverage at this point. And then my bet, Module Federation, it's a Webpack plugin on version 5. That is going to be, I think, changing the landscape of micro frontend quite quickly, and it's already doing a good stuff. So also watch out for that. And then finally, these lessons learned. So against sharing on duplication, try to find a balance in the sense that it's always good to share, but don't share too much. So probably a core team could share a header component or a footer component. But if we notice that there are so many different changes for that component, then you also don't get hostage of the core team to do the changes. And maybe you need some kind of duplication in that sense. Then it's very important to put automation in the sense of dependency management or UX inconsistency. For instance, for UX inconsistency, we are leveraging Cypress in a sense that we check that the common components in the right place. But for dependency management, there could be tools like, as I mentioned, Module Federation that can do that for you. Then it will be a matter also to prioritize the development experience, because it's important that your developers actually have the chance to work in an ecosystem which is clear, with common components, style guide, using Figma, etc. So it's very important that. The routing also is relevant in the sense that you want to have a global routing to be orchestrated by the core team, and then you have a second level routing used by your own web application. Infrastructure as code is a must. We use it a lot in Nordia. You can use anything about Terraform, CloudFormation, CDK, but it's a must that actually ensures a good CICD pipeline as well. And then I will say my experience, if it's well, large organization, because you have hundreds of developers working on the same platform, on the same code. So you want to leverage that. You can try in a startup, but it may be overkill, I would say, for a startup with just a single team. So our result was that we were working towards having a completely independent deployment. We're actually in the final phases to have a cloud POC, and that's what I'm going to touch upon. So we're getting there, and actually I'm pretty excited about that. The rest actually got much better because, as I mentioned, the team got structured, the CI/CD was much more mature. We got to understand which framework to use, and the domain was actually more cohesive and more contexted in that sense. So towards the cloud, so how do we use AWS in our case for to leverage this? So as I mentioned, micro frontends are an opportunity. It can be an opportunity in a couple of main topics. It can be an opportunity for legacy migration towards towards the cloud, or could be an opportunity in terms of a CI/CD serverless pipeline. And I'm going to touch upon these couple of examples. So the client-side ingredients for a client-side application are essentially these. You can omit maybe Route 53, but essentially you have Route 53, which is essentially a DNS managed service by AWS. So you probably guys already know about all of this. And then you have Cloudfront, which handles as a content delivery network. It's able actually to host static and dynamic content like HTML, and has the opportunity to actually connect to different origins like S3, but also to ALB, EC2, and other stuff. Then you have the web application firewall, which essentially try to prevent exploits at layer 7, which essentially just an HTTP layer. And it's just a good integration with CloudFront. And you can actually use web ACLs, access list, which essentially you could check upon the rules for XSS scripting or geo-matching or IP address. Then you have a Lambda Edge, which essentially is a component executing at the edge and allows you to actually redirect to different origins coming from the CloudFront. And then you have one of my favorite services, S3. It's the infinite object storage service, where essentially you can put any assets like a JavaScript file, or where essentially the micro frontends will be deployed to. So the first case about a migration architecture, this will be leveraging something called Cloudfront Functions, because depending on the case, you can actually bypass, or at least you can have the users redirecting towards your micro frontends or towards your on-premise, or maybe your another cloud distribution, CloudFront distribution. So in one cases, and there is an article that you can look up into details, you will have a CloudFront function that will be using cookie to somehow dispatch users between a new cloud, a new application on the cloud, or a legacy payments. So maybe 10% will go to the region set to the service, to the S3 Amazon service, and if 90% instead will go to the legacy one. So Cloudfront function in details, they or at least at high level, they're just a lightweight process that works at the edge location. And the big difference with the Lambda at the edge is that Cloudfront function work at the edge location. They have access to this viewer request and viewer response triggers, while the Lambda has also access to the origin request and the origin response. Lambda Cloudfront function, at least, they're very useful for URL rewrite and header manipulation. And in our case, I just did a quick experiment in the sense that you can have a traffic where you say that 10%, as I mentioned earlier, needs to go to a specific source. And if you have a cookie, then if you have associated a cookie with that, depending on the content of the cookie, you can actually redirect to a legacy environment, or you can actually redirect to another environment like this MFE URL, which essentially it's a CloudFront distribution. If you don't have any cookie, of course, the first time, and then we'll just randomly select between the legacy and the micro frontend app in a way that you can do some kind of canary release application. And this also applies for A/B testing. You can do with the same approach the same. The other migration is with Lambda at the edge, and it's a little bit more powerful because, of course, at the CloudFront function, you can't access external resources like S3, DynamoDB, or microservices. But the Lambda at the edge, you can actually do that, and that means that you can actually have complex logic based on your needs. Where essentially you can actually use the connection to a DynamoDB because you want to host which front end you want to redirect users to which origin. So I would strongly recommend to use this flow in the sense that you can have a Lambda at the edge that can connect to maybe an S3 bucket containing a JSON configuration, for instance, or having a DynamoDB that contains another info. The last topic I'd like to touch is about this serverless CICD. We have in micro frontends different paradigms. Like you can have monorepos, like you see in the picture, sorry, which essentially you have all your micro frontends inside the same repository. Or you can have a polyrepo where you have your individual repository with your individual micro frontend. And I've been working a little bit about this, and there are two different ways that you can achieve this. In the first one, for instance, you can have an access to GitHub or Bitbucket or anything that you prefer that is actually supported by code pipeline. And then developers can push the change to a specific branch, and then this will trigger a pipeline, which in this case consists of 4 steps. The pipeline itself that manages the CI/CD, and then the build process, the deployment to the S3 bucket, and the cache invalidation step, which allows you to actually invalidate the cache once you deploy it to the S3 bucket, but mostly once you have the ability to actually clear the cache on CloudFront level. This is pretty straightforward. And actually, you already see the components for a client-side application that I just mentioned earlier. On the other hand, we have also a Monorepo serverless. You have the ability actually to have different components where you can have an API gateway that can trigger a Lambda function, which is essentially responsible for a couple of things. So the API gateway, it's something that you can see, for instance, on a GitHub webhook. So user push the commits to the GitHub. Then you trigger a webhook which posts the commit information to this endpoint, and then it's up to you to the Lambda function to actually find out based on the commit which micro frontend you want to address, and then depending on that, actually start a pipeline and executing the specific micro frontend. So there are many of these code pipeline, because you can have individual code pipelines for individual micro frontends. I think it's just nice because then you can customize it depending on your team needs. But essentially, the result will be that you have a code pipeline named with the same as the micro frontend. Sorry, and then you have all the 4 steps I just mentioned that will trigger the build, the deployment to S3, and the invalidation of the cache. And the last step, as I mentioned, again, it's our good old client-side architecture. One thing I want to show is that how does the Lambda function redirects towards the specific folder. So you can have something in the sense that you can send the request origin into a specific domain, and that can be based on a URL or can be based on a much more complex logic, as I mentioned, with an S3 bucket JSON configuration or with a DynamoDB. But essentially, you have all the freedom you can do in the Lambda edge, but at the same time, you need to be careful to do the minimal redirection. That's my recommendation. So as a conclusion, yeah, the journey is continuing, and we're very excited to actually starting using the CI/CD pipelines on the cloud. And in the coming future, there's going to be pretty awesome time also, at least in our company, to do that. But again, you need to work together with business, because it needs to encompass different choices, technical choices, but also you need to understand that if the business is willing to let you do this, essentially. But yeah, just never stop building. That's at least my advice for you. That concludes my talk. But thank you so much for having me again. You can follow my progress on Medium through this link. And then I'd like to share maybe this Survey Monkey just to get your feedback and maybe improve part of the discussions I just did, or essentially adding new talks that target a specific area you're really keen to listen to. But again, thanks for having me, and I'll give it back to the presenter.
Awesome. Thanks, Antonio. Can you as well pass us? I saw you shared a YouTube video about the architecture you were talking about in that specific slide. Maybe you share that with us as well. Any question, guys, for Antonio? We have like a couple of minutes. We can take a couple of questions. I really like the point as well where you mentioned about the team structure. Actually, I'm curious a bit because I have the same idea as well. When you talk about when you have a solutions architect doing the architecture and you have the tech team, what challenges you face with this kind of structure?
Communication. So at least solution architects are pretty common in corporates, and most of the time they could be in different line organizations, so they don't really work directly with you. But it's very important in that sense to have to base trust and communication with the solution architect. And when you feel you have some kind of architectural decision that somehow affect outside of the team, it's definitely good to include them as part of that. There is no more tendency for solution architect, at least in our case, to dictate how to do things. So it's also due to a cultural model we have in Denmark, where it's very shared and very, very nice in that sense.
Awesome. Great. Really good point. Any other question, guys, for Antonio?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great talk, Anthony. Chirag this side. Glad to connect with you. So just to know, like as you in starting, you mentioned about that you are working. This application is for a bank, and how about the security part? Like what any kind of compliance, which is again regional specific, it may be, and the global. So how you are able to pass through the security checks? Like, is there any third party tool involved, or any other library, or can you share something around that?
Yeah, of course. So as you may imagine, we don't have the flexibility of a startup, but at the same time, we also have some processes that have been improving by time. There is a lot of segregation of duties. So, for instance, in terms of security, there are situations where specific teams can't access the CI/CD pipeline because they belong to a different organization. Lately, actually, with this POC for the cloud, we're actually trying to be involved in that, because I think a developer shouldn't just, I would say, develop the code and ship it, but in the same time should also be involved in the choices of to see how you are using leveraging infrastructure as code to do that, for instance. So a lot of security, as you may think, a lot of segregation of duty, a lot of in the CI/CD pipeline, in who deploys, because of course we don't have production access to the bank, and we don't want to have it, because then I will change bank, of course. Yeah. But yeah, there are cybersecurity teams that also look into penetration tests and things like that. So yeah, it's an effort that needs to start at organization level. So yeah, that's and there are so many tools, so that yeah, I can't fit probably 10 minutes to discuss them. But yeah.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Antonio, and hopefully we will get you soon. I will keep in touch with you. Maybe like you mentioned, we can do collaboration between both user group in Denmark and in here. So let's see how it goes. So hopefully, again, I'll see you soon. Thank you so much, Antonio. Let me share my screen. Before
Thank you.
thanks. And Antonio, if you want to share as well the link you just mentioned about the feedback, you can paste it in the chat. Before we go to our second speaker, we don't have any hiring announcement for today, but if you are hiring for your team, of course, this is the best place to hunt some talent. So you can just scan this QR code and we will share all the opening next month. So I will leave this one for a bit if you guys want to fill up the form and we share it with the community. Okay. Next thing I want to mention, anyone is welcome to give a talk. We always welcome from beginner topics to super advanced topic. So if you are building anything or side project on AWS, or you want to share how your company do things on AWS, do share this QR code, fill up the information, and we will reach out to you. Okay, so I will leave this one for a few seconds if you guys want to fill up the form. Okay, next we have Chirag. So Chirag will like I mentioned before, I think now new people just joined, so I will just repeat a bit. We are trying something new. Usually we don't do Q&A session, but we are lucky to have Chirag here, who has a very interesting background, moving from he was into pre-sales, moved from pre-sales to sales, then from sales to become a solutions architect. He has more than 20 certificates in the cloud, very active in the cloud community. And he will share with us how you can move your career more into cloud if you are interested in that. Which I'm actually interested in the opposite as well. So I'm going to ask you how people into cloud and they have a very strong tech background, they can move to pre-sales, because as well pre-sales roles these days very interesting. So before we started, guys, if you can open your camera as well, do open it. Let's make it more into like, you know, a face-to-face chat. And please do ask any question to Chirag on anything related to cloud and how you can build your career or there. Even if you are, for example, coming from software background, you want to move more into cloud, this is your chance to ask Chirag some questions. So I will pass it to you from here. Are you sharing anything, Chirag, or just
No, it's live.
okay.
I think let it be very open discussion. So I'm not too fond of the PPT out of the out of when I'm out of work. So let the people talk, and few things I would like to share from my side. And if you have any specific question to discuss, so you can pass it to me. I will share my thoughts around that area. And yeah, let's start in that way.
Awesome, great. So maybe we start with giving us a more detailed background on how you ended up as a solutions architect and very active in the community, and then maybe we can ask you a couple of questions as well.
Okay, sure. So first of all, I would like to thank you, AWS Malaysia user group, for this opportunity, as well as I believe my friend is right now not here, Kaushik Mohanraj. He is active. I believe the contributor also part of user group. So we are connected from couple of years. So it's kind of always learning and sharing with the community. And another thing is, all opinion is my own. So I'm not going to represent any of my organization or anything. So yeah, let me start that how I came into this industry. So I started my computer science graduation in India back in 2010-12 kind of a time, and at that time I just enrolled in a program from my college side. So they have my college had a collaboration with Microsoft, and at that time Windows Azure was something new. So I was a bit curious, what is this Windows Azure? Being as just after school, moving to college, we all have a curiosity that some Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8. I said, I am not aware that what is Windows Azure. I thought maybe it's another operating system, but that is where, because of that program, it's known as DreamSpark. I remember it's known as DreamSpark, and they are giving a subscription. So that is where I landed. I was no idea about the infrastructure part, that what is operating system, what is a virtualization, all those things. So from those days in my college, I started exploring, and there was famous uh, academy known as Microsoft Virtual Academy back in again 5 6 years. Maybe nowadays it's closed, or it become Microsoft Learning or all those things. But I believe now, yeah, 8 years ago it was known as MVA, Microsoft Virtual Academy. So every week there are training organized by Microsoft employees, as well as the people who are into the communities being MVP. So from those I started following the courses, because no other expensive first training was very expensive, and it was not available most of the platforms. Nowadays, like we see, there are endless resources available. So in the span of that 4 5 year in my college days, I just picking those kind of concepts, and then I landed to AWS, because again, when we heard about Amazon, it just the first thought came, it is a bookstore. But something AWS, Amazon Web Services. And again, I borrow a credit card of my brother, because again, in student life I didn't have a credit card, and at that time AWS was not accepting even the Indian debit card. So I just started a free trial, and I was started using the best investment, I can say, what I have done on myself, purchasing a domain of my own name, chiragnayyar.com. So I start doing simple blog. That is where my interest started getting. Even I am a computer science guy, I don't want to go into too much of coding. So WordPress was a lifesaver until date. It's a lifesaver for me. And I started experimenting the thing, that okay, a simple website, a WordPress installation, then putting something load balancer in front of that. So all those things, it piqued my interest. Then I decided that this is going to be the next big thing in the IT. And because it's a very normal move after completing the graduation in computer science or any IT academic, you will go for the software developer job, or we will go to some big MNCs. It's very common in India, especially the college placements. But at that time I made my mind to not to move. And same with, at that time, GCP was very in their early days. So I started replicating, I started learning about networking and Linux operating system. And then it took me a year to find my first job, because cloud was not famous. There was very less demand in the market, and it was something that no, everyone is saying, oh, you are computer science, better you do some Python job. We will see if any cloud project came. So that is where I travel across the country. I'm from the northern part. I traveled to southern part, attended the AWS Summit. I think that was the first summit in 2015 or 14 and 15. And then I attended the Microsoft event, where when the Microsoft launched Azure in India. I saw, I was sitting in the first row. I saw Scott Guthrie as well as Satya Nadella. So I was totally excited that wow, something going big in the IT industry. I need to be there. So then I truly made my mind, whatsoever, I will be in the cloud industry. And from these events, I got to know about the partner ecosystem. And that is where I landed my job. And I joined as a sales. I started as a sales, not as a pre-sales, first of all. Okay. And yeah, it was kind of a challenging for a computer science, moving to directly to sales, and that to a new territory. As you know, India is
Uh, so
very
Chirag,
diverse.
was it as a sales, like you are trying to get customers because the company was as a vendors, or
Yes,
so you
yes.
were
So
still
company,
doing sales for a cloud related project?
exactly, yes. So company is from the partner ecosystem. So they are now premier consulting partner of AWS. They were totally focused only on AWS. Okay. So they hired me. They said we want to open, like expand the business in the eastern part of country. That is where I moved to Calcutta. If anyone know about the India geography, so I spent time in my early days of my career in Calcutta. And yeah, first 6 months was again very tough, because sales is something not which I was thinking I can do, but gradually with a small win, it happened. And then I moved to Mumbai, worked with a few media customer. Then again, went back to Calcutta in 2019, worked with again few enterprise customer. That is where the new concept, this landing zone and all those things came into picture. And I am really lucky that I got the opportunity to work with such customer as their first cloud vendor or partner, and I was the account manager. And I kind of, that's where like I started utilizing my technical skills, because it's not just doing the sales part, commercial part, but maybe when we are talking about cloud, this agility and all those things. So I believe if we can handle a technical part at certain level, it will be helpful to accelerate the any opportunity like the customer deal. So that's where like I got the opportunity to move out of country, and in 2019 in the same organization I moved here in Singapore. And yeah, here also I was playing a role of pre-sales, because here we had a big sales team. So I again, in the whole span, what I think, what I started putting a continuous effort about learning and making my fundamentals strong. I didn't try to go each and every service what AWS is releasing, but the services which are getting enhanced, especially maybe VPC was not the same with what we are using nowadays. 5 years ago, it was very less feature, or many other things same in the EC2 as well as in the S3. So, but the area is what they are covering is storage, compute, and networking. That is till date, I believe, is the fundamental which is getting used in each and every industry, whether any industry or any company is using cloud or going to use cloud. This will remain the same, and we need to start from that area. So that is how like I build my confidence, able to talk. And just to maybe have another minute about the communities. Yes, communities play a major role in my career, because there was a time I was very shy, I was very hesitant to talk, taking the challenge to be a sales guy, talking in front of a customer. And then I was kind of very early member of AWS user group Calcutta, and we organized the AWS Community Day Calcutta in 2019 also. And till date, whenever I got the opportunity, I try to contribute, and that's where I started the CNCF Calcutta community, and the communities always play a role. I still remember that I was feeling so nervous on my first talk in Mumbai, and I was shivering totally, because I never see so much of big crowd. And but yeah, it happens step by step. It is not that the overnight thing. It took me at least 6 years now to reach and speak at more and more confident. Yeah.
That's great. Before we continue, can you just explain to us a bit when you are talking about sales, pre-sales into the cloud? Can you tell us what the difference when you are sales and pre-sales, and what does it mean when you are a cloud pre-sales? Like,
Okay.
what's your day-to-day usually work before we are talking about switching the whole thing to a solutions architect?
Okay, okay. So sales is something major. What I can say, the people who are building, knowing the relationship or having contacts, it comes from most of the people who are having an experience in somehow the market or market segment, or previously working or serving the customer. So sales is just to open the opportunity, just to understanding the customer landscape, and if the cloud can fit or not. And pre-sales job is to really qualify whether it is doable or not. Giving an example, there are many services which are releasing, let's say on reinvent, but it doesn't mean that it is releasing entire all the regions or at a global scale. Like I did such kind of mistakes again, even in my past, that I was super excited that, hey man, reinvent this service announced, uh, let's do tomorrow, it will reduce your cost. Very great example here in my career is uh, Glacier Deep Archive, which is the 1/10th cost of even the Glacier, the storage class of S3. But it was not available in Mumbai when it got released. And I know one of my customer that they are having a huge storage, huge data, and which they are storing on Glacier. And I said, hey man, we can reduce your cost. Today you are paying so much amount, it will be this much, but without a research. Okay. And then when I said okay, let's do, I can give you the approval, you drop me the mail, what is the plan here. Then I say it's not available in Mumbai. So the customer, maybe again, it is kind of a disappointment for the customer. So that is where I believe the pre-sales part need to be there, because most of the salespeople, as I mentioned, those are very good in building relationship. It may happen he or she is not too techy or not focus on the tech part, but the pre-sales part is to do the proper due diligence. So those kind of thing, I was a one-man army trying to do every day. I just following the updates, knowing okay, these are the my customers and what is their current architecture. It may be again small, it may be large, it may be complex. So making my own mindset, yes, this can fit. If this let's say some update came, it will strike in my mind, okay, this will be useful for this customer. Let me, it can be opportunity to call, hey sir, I have something for you, maybe it will reduce your cost, it will improve your performance. Let's say the new instance type came and it is maybe 5% cheaper than the previous generation, but the performance is maybe 15% better, without changing the code. Again, there is always the exception here, we can't do everything bluntly or blindly. So but it can give the opportunity to talk with the customer and getting a meeting, getting maybe a coffee, pre-pandemic time I'm saying. So that kind of approaches I was taking, and it worked well, at least for me. And that's where I got the opportunity to work in a different geography. Here I'm also trying to do and sharing internally also in my team that the secret is every day I'm reading all the updates I created by personal Slack channel, and I'm just subscribed to the RSS feed of AWS What's New. So every morning, whenever let's say I'm going to office or even going for a walk or something, I just check. At least 20 new updates are there. As you know, that AWS is releasing maybe uh, 2000 or sometime every reinvent they share the services and feature, maybe nearby 2000 a year. So we can think of per day how many updates, and out of let's say 20 update, it may happen the two updates can be useful. So that is giving the opportunity to improve your customer experience. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. So now we know like the difference between sales and pre-sales. I just want to make it clear as well to the guys here. Please do ask Chirag any question. So far, do you guys have any? I personally, I do have a lot of questions still, but I want to give you guys some time to ask a question. It's a very interesting topic, especially even if you are into cloud and you want to move the opposite side. You can ask. So, do we have any question, guys, so far? As we want to do it more as a Q&A session today.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hi.
Okay.
Yeah, Muhammad, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I don't know. I just joined the meeting now. I have a question. I don't know if I can find answer here. So the question is, I'm trying to integrate AWS Chime in my project. I faced some tricks. I don't know how to continue it. So I don't know if this question is okay or not.
Okay, Mohammed, actually, this session is a bit out of the scope of this question. What you can do, actually, you can join our AWS user group on Facebook and
Okay.
just ask the question there, and we will be
Yeah, yeah.
happy to help you in a technical question. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
So
Yeah.
today, what we are talking about is how you more into building a cloud career.
Learning part.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you don't, I will paste now the link for our Facebook group, so you can just paste that there. Awesome.
Yeah. Done. Done. I'm there already. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Here's Hassan. Just paste the thing. I do have a question, Chirag. When did you feel? I mean, you have your own job in pre-sales, and you are doing both cloud and sales, which is your strong area, right? When did you feel like, or what's the reasons you said, okay, you know what, I want to move completely to do cloud as a cloud engineer or cloud architect, solutions architect? Why did you do that move? Like, what's the benefits of doing that?
Okay. So see, that is what like I think academic part helped me, because I still understand the basics of programming. Okay. And I thought maybe let me try to do a bit on delivery part. Okay. Because that is what keep us motivated. There is always a change required. It doesn't mean that I want to change the entire my technology stack. I'm still kind of a infra guy, bit on the security side, and how to design the solution for the customer. Rather than I was thinking that now, okay, I have done infra, I need to go for AI/ML. But knowing the both side of coin, that is where I got the opportunity and my management supported me. and I told them that I want to take a back seat and I want to do a bit on the delivery side, like what's going in the, you can say, delivery organization. I know the sales and pre-sales, that how the customer part, we need to handle customer, we need to response on time, we need to maybe chase the delivery. So pre-sale, being at the pre-sales, it's kind of a central, or it kind of, yeah, it's kind of a central person who need to handle the customer IT team even, and maybe customer IT team training and building the champ on the customer side, handling the sales expectation, handling the delivery, and if any case the support escalation. Again, so pre-sales is always play a very integrated role in an organization. So because my company got, the previous organization again, it got acquired and the team was bigger, and that is where with the good terms with the management, and I request that I would like to try this something which I thought maybe 5 years back I was getting a developer job, but let me try something new. That's where I started putting effort to learn bit on the Terraform side. Okay, knowing the JSON, this and that. So why not to do some POCs, knowing about the databases, especially the relational databases. I try to like that. Being as a cloud solution architect, doing some POCs for a customer, because I was not totally that confident that 100% I can do any large scale project, but let's do a try. So trying, building POCs, so it helped me to understand the both side of coin, that okay, in the favor of sales, we always say, hey, we can overcommit anything. Okay, but from the delivery side, the scope need to be always narrow. So that helped me to understand where the gap can be, because for a solution architect, communication is always a good part. Depth of solutioning, doing a solutioning, knowing the risk factor as well as the benefit, from again from the multiple point of view. It can be cost, it can be customer different requirement, maybe a security, compliance, optimization. So it helped me. The most important part in this entire journey, I learned that finding the pain point is the most important part for the customer, because it may happen on day one, on in the first or second meeting, customer is not going to say what is a real pain point in their existing architecture. Again, I'm talking if the customer has a big footprint of on premises, or maybe colo, or maybe some other cloud, it may happen. Okay.
Right.
So finding that part is the most important, that what is a real pain point, then only do the solutioning. Because in overexcitement, that if you say, hey, we will create some VPC 4-5 subnet, this that, it's okay, but it will
Right.
not solve the entire problem.
100%. One thing I want to ask you as well. Let's say here, I know a lot of people actually here are software engineers, for example, right? What advices, or what do you think to be a successful cloud engineer? You are coming from a software background or any background basically, and you want to move a full-time into cloud career. What do you think, which path they should follow? And do you think, for example, certifications could help them? And what do you usually, when a cloud architect or solutions architect, consider as a good architect? Do you think soft skills are important to work cross-functional? Do they need to improve their communication skills? Do they need to improve their presentation skills? Can you share a bit on this point?
Sure. Great. Okay. So just to share here, to become a solution architect, first of all, the mindset is required. Okay. With the cloud, the scope is now much broader. The JDs are no longer the same, which was 5 to 7 years ago. Now we see there are again some memes going. That is a different story, but the expectation is getting much higher from a solution architect point of view. Another thing, keep remember, the basics are still same. Most of, like, I believe if anyone fond of reading some research paper or marketing surveys, even in the reinvent, I remember in 2020, Andy Jassy said that only 4% of enterprise infrastructure is running to cloud or till it move to cloud. So there is a big room we are talking about, and we are talking about a trillions of dollar of market. It's not a small chunk, and there is much to eat there, and there is a lack lack of supply. Supply here is the people who are skillful in cloud. Okay, so I will take it in the two-way. Certification part, I will talk maybe after 5-7 minutes, but let me set the context here. The basics, the fundamental remain same. Application can be hosted in a monolithic way or the 3-tier, regardless of sizing. It doesn't mean that if one application in 3-tier having a powerful servers, it is more complex than if the application is having a maybe 1 gig of RAM. But fundamentally same, 3-tier is 3-tier. So to learn that, try to build your first mindset that yeah, this is how the fundamental, and implement it in even the free tier. In the free tier, there is no complex mathematics you need to use, because obviously I believe in college days we all have studied the complex mathematics, but the basic mathematics will work to find out how you will remain under free tier. You can't even now, even I think the free tier limitations are also expanded, the data bandwidth and all this. Previously it was bit very restrictive or very small. So use the basic math and try to set up few instances, set up the custom network. If you follow some tutorials, videos, it's okay. Maybe do it one or twice. After that, think that 10 times you are going to do by your own, you will do mistake. Decide some custom subnet for sure. It will throw the error that the subnet is overlapping with some other subnet, blah blah blah. The more you will get the error, the more chances you will get the clarity. So it's the thumb rule of cloud is build fast, fail fast. That is where the value proposition is, because we are talking not about the days to purchasing or procuring infrastructure setting, blah blah blah, but in the few minutes we fail, troubleshoot. Again, troubleshooting can take hours, depend upon everyone background, but knowing the fundamental is important. Why here I'm saying knowing the fundamental here is no longer the days that internet is luxury, it's a necessity, and everyone is having the multiple smart devices. Just take the same example, maybe few years back, if our mobile, like we are very okay fond of having favorite application, we are playing with that, but if any issue happen in our mobile, what we do, we start troubleshooting by our own. Even we are not hardware expert, but what we do, we open the mobile, check the battery. That is because our mindset was like that yeah, basic troubleshooting I can do from by my own, rather than going to the mobile repair shop and all this. The same fundamental you need to apply here. Even if you are a developer, you need to know, because we all are living in a connected world. You need to know how the networking work. It's again the basics. It may happen you have not studied, or not yeah, it was not subject in the academics. That is where all the quality resources is available. Only thing is dedication and your own schedule. That don't rush. It is not that if someone is learning the one thing in 1 week, the other need to do in a 1 week. It may take a 1 month also, it's okay. Make your mindset that you are running for yourself, not you don't need to compete the others. That is the important part. That is, even I was failing before a few years ago, then I start adopting for myself that yes, what I was maybe 6 months ago, in next 6 months, what I really need to learn, what will be helpful. So from that mindset, start using the free tier, build some small web application, understand from even from the DNS how the request is getting served. There are multiple points, multiple things are going to open. That how first of all DNS is resolving the request by the domain name. I think that is maybe a cost of a MACD meal. Let's say yeah, few bucks. Buy a domain name for a year, test it. SSL certificate again is free on AWS with ACM and load balancer. And from load balancer, try to make the mind map that how even the request is going. That is where the monitoring, logging, ops part came into picture for the cloud engineer. Operationals and reading, how to read a log is also very important. Read
Right.
Apache log. Even you will get some information which not cover in any academics, not cover in any video tutorials. Again, at the basic level, maybe it may be very specific or very advanced level, it can get coverage. But from those point of view, try to understand. And now think one application in your company, or not even a company, in some world, like how it is running. the reference architecture will be there. Don't go as a next step, don't go to the complex part, but just as a basic part. It doesn't mean that everyone move to microservices overnight till date. Maybe I can't say in how many percentage, but 3 tier or service oriented architecture is still there, and people are trying to move. And the same way, step by step, like in the previous talk, Anthony mentioned about the CI/CD pipeline. From those point of view, you can think of to building your own confidence and the conceptual knowledge as well as bit of practical knowledge. And
Right. And actually, I want to add one point on the very, very interesting point when you mention, you said check how different companies doing things. And I think this is very, very interesting point, especially what you can do is go and check case studies, because AWS, they have how Netflix build things, like what Chirag mentioned, how, for example, iFlex been doing here. You can find a lot of medium things. How different big companies, Gojek, for example, even on GCP, for example, how they are doing things, right? So it's really interesting point. And I personally, I feel here where you can learn the most when you see different companies building things on the cloud. Before we jump to our next point, we have a very interesting conversation happening in the chat.
Okay.
First thing I want to comment on Hassan comment. He's saying certifications, you mean brain dump. Actually, this is true and not true, to be honest. Certification, especially in the cloud, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chirag, right? If you guys planning to go into cloud field, which I will let Chirag talk more about the certifications in a bit, but to answer on Hassan's comment, even if you are preparing for certifications and you don't go for the exam, it still has a value. Why? Because if you look actually on Zafran question, he's asking that AWS has a lot of services, how we can learn all of this and which one we need to pick up, right? So even if you're preparing for certification, why I do personally like certification, because it gives you a path. You need, like, your goal is the certificate, but actually you will go through, for example, what is Elastic Beanstalk, what is Lambda function, what is RDS. Just by reading all of this, you know what AWS offer you. So to me, certification is not important as because you have the certificate. No one will hire you because of the certificate, but because it will give you a clear path, better than going and watching random videos from YouTube, because you have like a very clear path. What do you think about this point, Chirag, when we are talking about?
Yeah, I think I forgot to share important part, that how I landed to AWS. Okay, finding like the case studies is a thing. I can say try to find your favorite application, how it is hosted. I landed to the AWS page from Dropbox because I got my first smartphone and Dropbox was pre-installed and I was not aware. I'm talking about the days of 2013. I was not aware that what is Dropbox. Trust me, no idea. Then I see Dropbox and it landed to the AWS use case, because I believe everyone aware that Dropbox was a cloud native at that time and heavy user. Until date they are using AWS in some or the other way. And from there I landed to the AWS. Now giving to the second point, certification brain dump. Again, never, don't compare the certification as your academic exam. Here you are not going to get that, hey, if you come top in the class, that you will get a prize from the family. First of all, I don't believe that is the mindset. And just to add again here, even before passing out, I have a 6 certification. I was the one who has a first Microsoft Azure certification in India, like very early day. I'm the first one, like the first release. It released in December 2013, 70-533. You can search. And nowadays, even I don't know, people even not aware, Google had a 5 certification back in 2015 for GCP. And I completed all 5 because it was free. And it was originally Google, like it was a product specific: Compute Engine Qualified Developer, BigQuery Qualified Developer, Storage, Cloud SQL, and App Engine. I'm not sure how many people aware, but I can show the proof. You can check my LinkedIn profile. I still marked it and posted it. But one thing was missing: no industry experience, no practical knowledge at that level. I failed in multiple interviews also before getting to my first job. As I was mentioned, I was looking for the job and I was saying I am a cloud certified. I took the print out, laminated it, and put it in my bag. With my resume, I always say, hey, I'm Google certified and Microsoft certified. But I had no idea that how the optimization of Apache or Nginx can happen, because I never done it. I just follow the tutorial and I was saying, hey, I have a WordPress blog, it can do this and that. But I never tested the auto scaling by myself because I don't know at that time what is the stateless and stateful things. So all those concepts will come when I started learning in a deeper way. So passing certification is good. If you want to use some cheating material, again, up to you. But trust me, it may take at least 5 minutes for me to find out from where you studied, because I have done I'm doing the certification from its in its scratch. So I can ask that very pointed question, because I'm also taking interviews for hiring, and I understand, okay guy, hey man, you study this course. Even I can tell you, because I watch it, most of those courses by my own, that I'm not going to say what platform, but yeah, hey, this course, this video, this course, this video. So tell me, this is the scenario. It will not work out for the long run. Yes, passing, getting some social media buzz, likes, okay, it may give you satisfaction, then you spend your money and time, but I'm not in that favor. I will never recommend. Only do certification when you are really confident, when your basics will be clear. Because think cloud and cloud learning as well as cloud certification as a investment, not a expense. As I mentioned, the mindset need to be broader, from the work point of view, from the learning curve point of view. It's a investment. It will cost you from your pocket or from your employer pocket, but it will give you return in a bigger way. And I believe I'm really lucky in that way, because the day I was not confident to face the people, but now it is something that I'm sharing, that whatever I have learned, I had few failures, and now I don't want that the others will do the same step. Most of the people reach out to me on the same story, that I have completed certification but not able to crack the interview. That is the reason, because they just study to pass for that. They have not even opened the AWS console. Trust me, I know people that they have not even signed up, because they're saying, oh, it will charge me. Man, then it's again the other mindset issue, that you need to
Right.
improve the mindset. If you say
That,
that,
that
sorry.
that's completely true. You really put it in a very nice way, especially like what you mentioned. Usually in interviews, actually, in 2 questions, because like for me, I like for example, when someone come to you and he has, for example, a couple of certifications. If you are talking about certificates, right? Like Chirag, you will still asking him question, and you will immediately know if this guy know how things works or no. And immediately when you feel this guy's knows, you know that he know the basics, because he really passed this kind of things, and you start asking the real questions.
Right, right.
So I totally agree, and I really like how he put it about the certification, because it's never-ending discussion. Some people really support it, some people really doesn't find the value of it. For me, the only value I really like about it, like for example, right now I'm doing preparing for the big data and machine learning from GCP, right?
Okay.
Which I have it from AWS. Now, when I'm doing it, I'm not again doing it because of the certificate. I just want to know what services compared to AWS, for example, like Kinesis or DynamoDB Stream or etc. It's same in Google. Instead of watching random things, you just like reading the book or
Yeah.
watching a full course, making your ideas clear. So that's my take actually on certification. And Chirag, of course, share a very, very interesting point. We have 5 minutes.
Sure.
Do we have, guys, questions? Let's open questions a bit for Chirag. Do you guys have any question? Actually, we have I didn't expect to have around 16 today as a Chinese New Year season, but we looks like people really interested in this kind of session, so maybe we need to do it more as well. So please do ask any question, guys, if you have, even if you are. Actually, I have an interesting question, Chirag. What do you think about moving from solutions architecting to pre-sales? At some point 3 years back, I was really interested in pre-sales because I feel like if you have the soft skills and you are a people person and you like to give presentations, maybe you will be successful there. What do you think going the opposite side?
Okay, I believe most of most of the people whom I know in my organization, in my circle, they took the same path. They were a kind of a backend guys, software developer, DBAs, and having maybe a 10 plus year of experience. And again, as you mentioned, the people person, that is the most important. It's all about what you want and how much efforts a person can put. It's not that you need to be pushed by someone else. It need to be your internal push, that okay, today you want to talk. It may happen the first time you shy, you are not able to answer, but don't get discouraged that today you have no answer. Go research, prepare your talk, and then answer. So in the pre-sales, as I mentioned, doing the qualification is a part, because that is where you are going to meet with someone who knows everything about IT, but at a higher level, and that is our what I can say, specialized salespeople. They can open any conversation, and that is where you need to understand how to jot down, make it the qualification. And here I would like to share one, maybe a thought. Know your army, and know your army here is your delivery team. What you can really deliver in house, or if you are going to utilize your partner, again, depend upon each and every organization. It can be small, large. Again, you guys know better about your org than me, so I'm just taking from that point. Know the strength is the most important part. Flagging the gray area and setting the right expectation with customer and then with your salesman, because maybe the sales team is running behind their target, so they can overcommit you. So from that point, utilizing your solution architect experience, because you know that what your team can do, apply that and narrow down, qualify with the right set of question, and then maybe work with the delivery, and delivery gonna love that. I can tell you, if you finalize the scope for the delivery by utilizing your experience for the customer, and the customer, your delivery is in the sync with the right communication, voila, you will
You
get
will you will make their life easier, basically.
yes, yes. So
Exactly.
it is kind of maybe overlapping sometime, that pre-sales and SA, or someone coming from a cloud architect background. In some organization, cloud architect itself a SA. Oh, sorry, pre-sales. So understanding the roles and responsibility, and there need to be a clear demarcation, that till what level of pre-sales need to talk about the technology. Let the delivery need to do their job also, because they know what realistically they can deliver in what timeline. So
Right.
again, the teamwork here.
Awesome. So great question. Before we end it for today, Chirag, do you want to share anything before we close it?
Sure. Okay, so quickly, I will take another 2 to 3 minutes, because
Yeah.
this is my, like, cloud is my favorite topic. I can talk for a days and weeks even, but understanding the time constraint, maybe in near future we will talk. So start learning. Don't wait that someone need to push to learn about cloud. Cloud is again not a different technology. It is just a add-on, whatever the existing ecosystem. Beat any technology, all the SDKs are available. If you are thinking from a developer point of view, knowing the fundamental of IT is must. 5 things I would like to add. Not five, let's add six now. Okay, networking, storage, computation part, because nowadays a different processor is coming. It's not a Intel AMD, Graviton chip is there. So there is a difference, x86 and ARM. As well as if you are having experience of mainframe or any kind of power processor, know how the cloud will work, or how the RISC or RISC, again, engineering terminology, maybe a transition will be work to modernize and utilize on cloud. Then RDBMS, know the database. Don't think that straight away start with the non-relational database or DynamoDB. Knowing the database basics is important. Microsoft Office for sales, pre-sales, and SA is a must. Be a master in PowerPoint and Excel. I'm still struggling. I'm still taking some courses on LinkedIn Learning to know about the Microsoft Excel shortcut, and then your communication. These are the things you need to adopt. And open mindset. Resources are free. Don't spend don't try to learn the same thing from a three different resource, because that is what I always say, the homework individually we need to do. There are endless courses, are quality courses. I'm not saying that the one is best, the another is not. It's your own research, that what trainer, what the way of trainer you like, because everyone is giving a very quality things, but it may happen everyone has their own study pattern, that when in which comfort zone people want to do study. So maybe some trials are there, test, YouTube free good videos are there, that is your googling skill again, seventh. These kind of things will help. And then the last one, how to read the documentation is also important, but that is a level 2. I don't say that on the level 1 you just start deep diving on the documentation. If you know, well and good, but first know the basics, and then knowing the, let's say, AWS documentation, how to navigate, it will be helpful.
Great tips. Love it. We have actually one last question, and I really like this question. How do you handle a situation as a solutions architect where pre-sales has overcommitted, which can't be achieved in terms of solutions to the business, which happen a lot usually? So,
Okay.
any tips on that? How to push back?
Yeah, again, this kind of thing, as I mentioned, I was a sales guy, and I don't know like what to do. Okay, and I say, "Oh, okay, sir, don't worry, my team will handle." And then my team will say, man, we can't handle, sorry, deal is not qualified, you don't know even how to do qualification. I had such time, and I was totally what I can say, not happy with me, that I don't know even how to work. I was thinking, no, my delivery don't know anything, I know everything. It kind of thing happen. It's like, your own mind fight. So to handle this, again, the communication part. So that is where the pre-sales, as I mentioned, the central part, to know really sales can do the overcommit. Pre-sales need to handle that part. Pre-sales is always a sales function or the sales organization. They need to set, if pre-sales did the overcommitment, then maybe pre-sales need to find out, if their team can't do the delivery, maybe some third party collaboration may work. Again, open the market. We can't say that everything will happen in house in IT. That is why the partner ecosystem is, and the collaboration is. That is where your relationship building in the market may help. Okay. And another beautiful part with the ecosystem is the AWS is always there to support. The AWS SA can guide maybe the what will be the solution approach. So it depends situationally. I'm saying there is no one straight path. I took a multiple routes to do tackle such situation.
Awesome. Great question. Or you can ask him to do it himself. That's an easier answer.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
get
It may happen.
it.
Overcommitment, pre-sales. Let's do the POC. Show it really can happen or not. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chirag. I really enjoyed this talk. And actually, we should do it. Just let us know, guys, if you really enjoyed this one. We should do this more, right? Just take people, share their experience, especially like Chirag, really passionate about cloud. It was obvious. I really enjoyed it. Do reach out to him maybe on LinkedIn. Maybe he will answer your questions,
Sure. Yeah,
hopefully.
even on every Saturday, I'm doing a live. So I'm bringing the people from my circle who are having experience from a different technology, and they adopted cloud. And I believe, if you know, I'm doing a kind of a cloud leader session on maybe a quarterly basis. Now we have planned where the Yujun, Richard Foltak, Satyan Kumar, and
That's great. Maybe you share with us where do you do that? Just share it
yeah,
on the.
it's on my YouTube channel. So it's my name
Awesome.
to search. So because when in last 2 years we all are in this pandemic situation, so I started a YouTube channel. It's again the self development, because the first time it may happen, we again hesitate to face the camera. That's a true thing. Okay.
Right.
Even to sitting in the alone room and talking by alone, like right now on call, people are here, but it may happen we are not able to speak for 15 seconds. I need to take maybe 10 shots to record even a one video. So I posted exam reviews, how to prepare, what was my strategy, as well as I started doing on every Saturday a live stream. So already next 5 weeks is scheduled. You can check on my latest LinkedIn post. So
Awesome.
everything is there, and this the stream will also be happen on LinkedIn live. Like
That's
on this.
that's that's really great. And here's Hassan. I love how Hassan always paste the links for any question. So he just pasted actually the link for Chirag channel. And here you guys have a new source to prepare yourself for your cloud career. Thank you so much, Chirag. Hopefully we will have you again.
Sure.
Before guys we end up today's meetup, please do give us feedback. Scan this QR code, fill up the form. Let us know, do you like this kind of sessions? Maybe we'll bring more people to do Q&A session and have not PowerPoint slides, just like sharing experience. So I will leave this one for 5 seconds. Do help the community improve, guys. Scan the QR code. Let us know, what do you think?
And terima kasih and kongsi for chai.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And last thing, guys, we do have a couple of channels. I'm not sure from where you guys coming. Some of you coming from Meetup. So do follow us on Meetup, where usually we you reserve there. When we go back on site, you need to reserve yourself so we can get extra food. Do follow us on Facebook as well. We are very active on Facebook. If you have any questions, like Muhammad just asked about some problem is in the application, you can just post it there, and you have all the guys, even we have guys from AWS will answer your question. And lately we have a YouTube channel. It's growing, man. We have all the recordings there. Do subscribe to us there, and let's make the community bigger. Again, just a quick reminder, we are always looking for speakers. Do reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or fill up the form I shared before. Thank you, guys. Have fun in Chinese New Year. I'm going to Langkawi. Hopefully, I will see some of you there. So, and happy Chinese New Year. Thank you all, guys.
Bye. Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good night, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Ken. It's good to see you, man.